Welcome to Jablam Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Bojarinov. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98, and I'm with
Conner Rowntree. You can find me at Twitter at SportsWithTree. Changed it up, personal reasons, but I think it makes more sense. Sports with Tree, Conner Rowntree. We talk sports. Make sure you give the account a follow. If you already follow me, it automatically stays on, and we'll get everything changed on Jablam Hockey for you, so you won't have to panic too much about losing me.
Sports with Tree. Yeah. So it was the Sport Tree.
Yeah.
Now Sports with Tree.
Yeah, it makes a little more sense, I feel. We talk sports with Tree. Nickname's Tree, Rowntree,
Okay.
Get the ball rolling.
All right, and you can also follow both of us and our team at Jablam Hockey, and of course go to our website, jablamhockey.com. All right. But first, before we get into training now, lately I've been screwing up the going into training now. But of course, what do we have this episode? We are going to be team ISOing the Philadelphia Flyers with special guest Kelly Hinkle from Broad Street Hockey. We're going to be doing our Jablam Junior Hockey update, and we'll tell you our Jablam Junior Player of the Month for November. And then we'll give you some hot and cold. Connor has that. And some fantasy tips and Saturday's picks. But first, trending now. I'm going to give a big ups to my work and go with the Leafs helping the sick kids with reporter Stella Quisto there, with helping the sick kids. It's always good to see the players giving back, and we talked about it all of the month of November with Hockey Fights Cancer, and this is pretty cool. Again, all of our, especially our trending now, is all on our website, on our game notes. Just check that out. We'll have the link for this as well. The video is kind of
innuendo.
I don't know.
There's a lot of innuendos in there, hockey references, and some that I think unintentionally just missed the mark. Mike Babcock talks about stuffing cookies with chocolate and making it soft and buttery. Made me a little uncomfortable. Give it a watch. Check it out on the game notes because, well, it's just weird and kind of entertaining. So make sure you get it, check it out, and tweet at us. Let us know what you thought of that because I'm dumbfounded still thinking about it.
But it's great. I like seeing the players always. I look like a lot of the players there. Like Stella was telling me, I'm going to see Michelini, I'm going to see Marleau, and my boy Zaitsev. And I'm like,
Hainsey gave a good little interview there.
Yeah, but there was Matthews was there, Marner was there, and I was like, whoa, like half the team was actually there.
Yeah, well, it's good.
It's pretty cool.
Getting involved. But who will not be getting involved? Boom, baby. The Russians. Ha! After all those years of cheating, the IOC has finally put their foot down. Any Russian athlete, though, can compete as long as they're test clean. They have to fly. They have to compete under a neutral flag. They will walk out to, if they win a medal, they will play the Olympic theme song, not their Russian national anthem. They will compete as quote-unquote athletes of Russia, not Team Russian or anything at all. And this puts a little bit of a weird edge on hockey. Mm-hmm. Because going in, if you didn't know, Russia is the betting favorite. But now there is no Team Russia. Back in September, Putin said that he's not interested in a team of Russian athletes. So we don't know if that's changed. So it's a little interesting. And what also really hits American teams and Canadian teams as well. 16 of the 26 players invited to the Canada camp, actually play in the KHL. And since this news broke, the KHL hasn't given any opinion if they're going to let their players go to the games or not. Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions surrounding the games themselves, Pyong Chang 2018, but especially the hockey. And it'll be interesting to see this coming week how everything unfolds. And we'll be sure to top you up on all the information on next week's Trending Now because right now, everyone is up in the air. Bob McKenzie talking about how Hockey Canada needs 24 to 48 hours to digest everything. Every Russian newspaper is tweeting about Putin's decisions and what he's deciding not to do and how he's deciding that he has announced he will run for president again. Mm-hmm. So everything is just up in the air and nobody really knows what's going on except for the fact that it is 100% certain that no Russian athlete will compete for Russia. They will be competing for themselves if they go to the Olympics.
So we were talking about this earlier, and no teams can actually play then.
No,
like you can't play as actually. So a lot of single competitions.
Yeah.
We mentioned maybe the bobsled.
Bobsled,
yeah, bobsled. Well, they're a go as long as they compete as 4 guys are quote unquote Olympic athletes from Russia. Mm-hmm. You can put them out there, but the one thing is that Putin literally said he does not want that. He said that in September. He does not want a hockey team under that format. So it will be interesting to see. But Victor Arvidsson.
Oh, well, before we get to Arvidsson, I did want to mention that there's been a few quotes. And I believe Alex Burmistrov said bull to that. So, yeah, a lot of guys are pissed off. And even guys that wouldn't been going anyways.
Well, one good thing to note is that Ilya Kovalchuk did say on a tweet that he thinks that banning all the athletes and all the clean athletes going will be good for a reform in Russia. So that is something from a former NHL player and KHLer.
Yeah. Our Arvidsson, like you were going to say, he looks like he's going to be getting the assist of the year.
Yeah. Call him Johnny Applesauce because that was the best Apple pick of all time.
Yeah. So again, it's on our game notes. There's the video of a fan somehow he got Arvidsson to help him with his marriage proposal. I don't know how that worked, but it looked like they were going on the ice to play their game, and as they're walking on the ice, somebody else is filming it behind them, and he's filming Arvidsson giving the ring
to the girl.
The
girl freaks out, turns around, and the guy's waiting on one knee. Ta-da! Oh, but the best part of the whole video is PK Subban's reaction.
Yeah.
PK Subban's reaction. Oh, yeah! Just walks by, gives about 3 oh yeahs, and just keeps going onto the ice. The girl's in tears, doesn't know what's going on, and you just have PK Subban, probably the most out there NHLer these days, most involved in the community for sure, leading the Central Division in All-Star votes, fan favorite, and he's yelling at you. Oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
Now what would have happened if she said no? What would PK said then?
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, that one.
That one would be a tough one to shrug off for sure.
I wonder if PK is gonna show up to their honeymoon hotel and go, oh yeah! Let's move on. All right, last but not least, this is interesting. You never see this from any of the hockey players, but the reporters did interview post games to Drew Doughty and Erik Karlsson, and they had some interesting comments to make. I think it was. I'm not too sure which one was first, but they both made comments. Like I believe Karlsson said something like when they asked him about what's going to go with his next contract, and he said, "quote I'm going to get what I'm worth, and it's going to be no less, no matter where I'm going." And that's from the Ottawa Sun.
Yeah, that's the captain of your hockey team saying that he just wants his money. Yeah. So that's I could spell some bad times coming for Senator fans because if the guy wants big bucks, I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there willing to give an arm and a leg for honestly the best defenseman in the NHL. I think that's fair to say at this point in the season.
You've heard me mention time and time again, Karlsson, in my opinion, again, is the most valuable to his team. I think he's the most valuable than, say, Crosby or McDavid or Carey Price to their teams. I think...
Ooh, Carey Price.
Yeah.
Debate for another day.
Yeah, it is.
That would be a good one.
Yeah. But, again, he is the most impactful to his team. What he did last year in the playoffs, again, bar none, he was outstanding.
The fact that he was just able to get back on the ice after the Achilles injury and the timetable that he did this season... And what he's done since he's been back on the ice, no, it's not Erik Karlsson numbers from last year, but he's still leading defenseman in points since he's been back. So,
yeah,
what do you want from the guy?
And again, Doughty had a similar quote, and he was basically saying, like, we'll see what happens with Karlsson, but I wouldn't mind checking out what happens in the off season, kind of thing, with Wow. Both of them, I think, have one more year left on their contracts. So it's going to be an exciting following summer if both of these guys are UFAs.
Yeah, well, it's especially going back to the Carlson thing. Carlson hasn't won a cup, but says he just wants the money, where Doughty's got 2 cups.
So he just wants the money.
I like, if anything, if I'm in Doughty's shoes, I would go to Phoenix in Arizona. I'd go play in Vegas. I'd go anywhere. Whoever wanted to pay me the most.
Yeah.
I got 2 cups. What else do I need?
Yeah.
Just enough money to support my kids through college. Boom.
Time for Team ISO. Of course, it's when we specifically talk about one team and we get a better insight about that team in the bloggers and on the internet. And this week we are Team ISOing the Philadelphia Flyers with special guest Kelly Hinkle. She is the associate editor at Broad Street Hockey. You can follow her on Twitter at Hinks, that's Hainx. And of course, you can follow Broad Street Hockey on Twitter, Broad Street ST Hockey, right there. And of course, Kelly, let's get right into it. I wrote here on my iPhone again a few days ago. So the Flyers really haven't been playing well for years now. They've only made the playoffs, I think, twice in the last 5 years. They're really struggling right now. Of course, we noticed, I think, what was it, an 11-game skid?
It was 10.
10. Okay, it was close to being 11.
Double 11 would be embarrassing, you guys.
Yeah.
It's just,
So they finally stopped the skid. They beat the Flames on Monday night. But again, this season, it looks like they probably won't make the playoffs. Is it time to rebuild, or are they just going to keep on retooling on the fly, which is not really working?
it's definitely not working. We do a podcast at Broad Street Hockey, too, and this is something that we've been wrestling with since this season kind of started to go downhill really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They started off pretty good. At the start of the season, I don't think anybody really expected this team to be a contender. They're definitely in the middle of some kind of something resembling a rebuild, so nobody was expecting great things from this team. But they started off pretty well. The top line was super hot at the start. The goaltending was pretty solid, and we were like, all right, bubble team. That's good. It's fine. But it hit the skids really quickly there, and things went downhill very fast, and now everything's pretty bad. So I am starting to think that this thing that Ron Hextall is trying to do, and to his credit, he's done a good job here. He had to fix a lot of problems that were left to him by previous GM Paul Holmgren. He's dumped a lot of contracts that we didn't need to have. He's done some good drafting.
It's always great to sign these big, long, huge contracts to very average or below average defensemen.
Oh, yeah. I wonder who you could be talking about. I don't know.
It's a big, long list. But there's still some there, I guess.
Yeah, so that particular anchor, I think, is going to be pretty difficult for us to shed. But to Hexy's credit, he's done some good things here. But he seems to be committed to this kind of half-in, half-out rebuild strategy where you remain somewhat competitive while also trying to rebuild. And I just don't think it's a thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're going to rebuild, you can't win games. And if you really want to try to win games, you can't really undertake a full rebuild. It's one of those things where you have to sacrifice one of those things in order for the other one to really work. And I think that we're seeing that now, that this isn't going to be a competitive team. And if it's not going to be a competitive team, then we need to, I think, shift the strategy a bit to something where we're not depending on, average or below average vets like Dale Weiss and Yuri Laterra to try and win games that at this point are meaningless. It would be better to focus on developing the kids, trade away what we can, and then go from there. But I'm just not sure that the organization is willing to go full tank. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be what they need to do.
Well, then that was kind of an awkward move then. Moving Shen for Laterra, why getting a middling forward instead of getting more prospects for Shen? So
I think that the idea of the Shen move was to get prospects. Mm-hmm. They got 2 first-rounders for him, and I think that they had to take Laterra in that trade to make the numbers work for St. Louis.
Yeah.
The Braden Shen trade is, for good reason, something that is getting a lot of focus on right now, just because he is obviously lighting it up. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, the thing about Shen is that I don't think he was ever going to be this guy in Philly.
Yeah.
We were never going to give him Tarasenko level line mates. He wasn't being played at center very frequently here in Philly. I just think that it was one of those situations where the change of scenery helped the player. I don't think I just don't think it's fair to say that Braden Shen would be scoring 50 goals with Philly this year.
Yeah.
I just don't think it would happen.
All right, let's talk about some players that are playing well. Jakub Voracek, or what do you guys call him, Jake or something?
Jake, yeah.
All right. He's still playing really well. 33 points. How is he still playing really well on the Flyers this year?
Well, as the team has kind of been burning in a dumpster fire around the first line, which actually recently just got broken up in an attempt to bust that losing streak. But for a while there, our top line was really the one bright spot on this team. Dave Haxtell, who I don't have a lot of nice things to say about him, but he did something bold this offseason, and he moved Claude Giroux to wing, and he put together the top line of Giroux, Voracek, and Couturier, and it lit the world on fire. It was one of the top three lines in the league, easily behind the Lightning's top line and Braden Shen's line in St. Louis. So I think it was just a matter of, first of all, last year's numbers for all of our top players, I think just aren't representative of what was going on with them. Last year for the Flyers was like a weird black hole where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and everyone's numbers suffered. So I was expecting both Voracek and Giroux to bounce back this season, but the way that they did has been surprising, and I think it's going to continue. He's had a tough few games, but then again, on a 10-game losing streak, everyone's kind of having tough games. But I think if they're turning it around, we'll continue to see good things out of him.
And again, you mentioned Couturier. So he's been playing with those two wingers. Is that the primary reason he's been playing that much better? But again, his plus-minus is still above and beyond, by far the best on the Flyers with plus 11 currently.
Yeah, so Sean Couturier, for me, is probably my favorite story of the season, just because he's finally getting the attention that I think he's deserved for a long time. He's always been, for the last maybe 5 seasons, just an absolute monster as far as shutdown centers go.
Yeah.
If you remember a couple of playoffs ago when we played the Penguins, he just destroyed Malkin for the entire series, and it was a delight to watch. So in my opinion, he's always been the guy that, because he doesn't put up the points offensively, he wasn't getting the attention or the respect that he deserves as a talent in this league. And he never really had good line mates. He wasn't really surrounded by a lot of talent. So you put a guy like him with two wingers like Voracek and Giroux, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, Sean Couturier has been good this whole time. He just didn't have anyone to give the puck to, and now he does, and it's, we're seeing the fruit of that.
Yeah. It's hard when you're on the third line and you're a great checking center, but you don't get to see too much out of him. All right, Connor, you got some prospects?
Yes, I totally do. And guess what? You were talking about prospects earlier and talking about wanting to do a full rebuild. You got a pretty good starting block in my books. His name is Carter Hart, playing for the Everett Silvertips right now. 14 games played this season, a 10-3-1 record, a 146 goals against average, and a 956 save percentage. And it's not a fluke. It's not like it's just 14 games. Last season, a full workload, 54 games played, and he had a goals against average below 2. He was just invited to the World Junior Camp for the Canadians today. Lord have mercy, Carter Hart. When do you think he'll break onto the scene for the Flyers?
So we actually had a running joke at Broad Street Hockey this offseason that we were kind of hoping that Carter Hart would make the team out of camp, just for fun, because it's almost like I almost try not to get too excited about Carter Hart, because goalies are such weirdos, and he's so good that I get nervous about being so excited about him. But if I have to put a date on it, I'm willing to bet that Carter Hart is at least backing up on the Flyers in 2 years, tops.
Well, where do you see the goaltending situation going forward then? Obviously, Elliott's getting a little older. Neuwirth hasn't really been able to establish himself as a starter. So over those next 2 years, what do you think the Flyers will do between the pipes?
So we've got Neuvert for 2 years, and I believe we just signed Elliott for 2 years. So I think that both of those contracts were kind of meant to be stopgap holdovers until we got an idea about what we were going to get out of Carter Hart and also guys like Felix Sandstrom over in the SHL. And then for a while there was some talk about our AHL goaltender Anthony Stolars maybe making a move up to the NHL, but he got hurt pretty badly this offseason, and that kind of put the brakes on that. I'm actually, unfortunately, I don't really think that kid's ever going to make it in the NHL, but we have a few kind of lined up like airplanes heading into the airport goalie prospects that are really good. And, soon-to-be Canadian superhero Carter Hart is obviously top of the list. So I'm hoping in 2 years he'll at least be getting a solid look at NHL time. And if he continues to be this good, it's hard to imagine that he's not going to steal the job from whoever is in front of him.
Well, moving out of the crease, another player. Actually, you guys have a great crop of young prospects down in Philadelphia right now, a bright future. And someone a little younger is Wade Allison out of Western Michigan. He's on fire right now, and I don't just mean his hair. He's got to have some good Irish heritage with hair like that. But 11 goals, 9 assists in his first 17 games, 10th in scoring in the NCAA, 52nd overall pick in 2016. When do you think he'll be able to break through? Because from what I've seen in his highlights, he's a full package player.
Yeah, he's one that kind of snuck up on me. We do a 25 under 25 ranking of the Flyers prospect system every year at Broad Street Hockey, and he's kind of one of the guys that's always seemed to fall kind of in the middle. Never like a big name, obviously, like you said, a 52nd overall, not a super high pick. But it's really nice to see. We have room for gingers on our team. But the thing that makes me a little bit nervous, and this kind of gets back to what we were talking about the Flyers' rebuild or lack of rebuild strategy, is that Hextall has this weird obsession with patience and making sure that his kids get what he calls AHL seasoning. Like, for example, Oscar Lindblom is a guy that we were hoping to see more of this season, and we've not seen any of him. A couple of other kids down there that we just... I worry that he's going to sit too long on these kids. And I always say that I want this team to go full Leafs, which is kind of an unfair comparison because the Leafs, obviously 2 years ago, the Leafs rookie crop was, generational. Like, it's not something that comes along all the time. And obviously what the Flyers have is not Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander. It's not that good. But I think it's maybe tier 2, right below that. And so I would kind of like to see them just throw them in and see what happens. Especially at this point, if the Flyers don't start winning a whole lot of games and other teams in the Metro losing a whole lot of games, this season is done. It's done. And that's fine because we weren't really expecting much of it anyway. But if we're going to concede this season, I would like to see them throw kids in. And so, sorry, I rambled. But to answer your question, I would hope to see Wade Allison get a look again in 2 years. 2 years is like my sweet spot window for this team. I think that's when most of the high-level prospects that are still in juniors and college are going to really start either aging into the AHL or making their way out of the junior leagues. And he's another one that I'm thinking 2 years is a good timeline for him to make a move.
Well, you said you don't want them to be gingered too much in the AHL, moved up too gingerly, pardon me. So would you be surprised or upset if he didn't make his 10 game, if he didn't play his 10 games next season?
No, I don't think I would be terribly upset. I'm in such a weird place with this team. I don't know what to expect. And I just don't know if I can really decide what this team is going to be until they fire the coach. Which it has to happen at some point, either this season or at the end of it. But Dave Hextall is just not a guy that I trust developing my kids. So I would actually rather they stay for now. Because if they come too close to the organization as it is, they're either going to sit in the press box or, play third line minutes in the AHL, and I just don't see a point to that. It's not going to help anybody get better.
All right, Kelly. Thank you for coming on the show. I don't know how close, Scotty Hartnell is to maybe retiring, but maybe he could be the new coach in the coming future if you want another ginger behind the bench.
He would have to grow that big curly afro back.
Yeah.
Orange hair, orange jerseys. Oh, my goodness. It's going to be tough to go to a game in Philadelphia these days.
It's actually really cheap.
All right, Kelly, thank you for coming on the show. And again, you can follow Kelly on Twitter at Hinks, Hinx, and of course, Broad Street Hockey. And that'll all be on our website at jablamhockey.com. Thank you for coming on the show, Kelly.
Thank you.
Well, time to talk a little Katy Perry. Yes, I make that joke every time we come to Hot and Cold, but it's classic, great song, Tart Chopper. Everyone knows it. I just said
Tart
Chart Topper. There it is.
Are you eating little tarts or something for
I
the
don't
holidays?
know. This is... Oh, I'm wearing a tarty sweater right now. But anyway, back to the hot and cold. Hot guy number one. This is pretty obvious. Sidney Crosby. Over his past 10 games, Crosby has recorded 16 points. And in those games, Crosby, when the team has scored, well, they're 5-1. When he hasn't, they're 1-3. So it's more than just being hot. It's about leading your team. And Sidney Crosby has stepped up in a big way as goes Crosby, as goes the Penguins. Hot player number 2. Over the past 8 contests, Captain Anze Kopitar has 11 points, 3 multi-point performances. The Kings have now won 6 in a row. And again, I think it's down to solid leadership. Kopitar got to see him play in Chicago on Sunday, had another multi-point game, a goal and an assist. And when he has the puck, it almost looks like a vintage Jaromir Jagr this season. Really tough to get it off of. Big guy, great reach, solid protection. And another guy with 11 points, but it only took him 5 games to do it. Blake Wheeler is on fire right now. There's really not much more to say. You watch the Jets play. They've been scoring a lot of goals. And Blake Wheeler with 11 points in 5 games. Now, my hot goaltender, because you have to have one, Carey Price. Although he lost to St. Louis on Tuesday, since his return on November 25th, when he posted a shutout, well, in the next 4 games, he only allowed more than a single goal just once. So, since his return, the Habs are 5-1. He's on fire, and he's posted a save percentage of lower than .957 in a game just once. So, I think it's fair to say Carey Price is back in a huge way.
So, I liked it because on TSN they threw up a stat, and I think I tweeted on it on Russia98 on Twitter. But it said the last time he's allowed 4 goals, because that's what happened last game, was November 2nd. I was like, was he injured for a month? So yeah, he played 5-6 games since.
Well, his
November
stats
2nd.
rate.
Yeah, his stats right now are so obscure because you look at what he's done lately, and then you look at his overall stats on the season. He's right around a .900 save percentage.
Crazy.
And as I said, other than that game in St. Louis, since his return, he's been .957 save percentage.
Wow.
Below that mark, just once.
Yeah.
So
Price.
the price is right.
Yeah.
In the words of my boy Happy Gilmore and Bob Barker.
But you mentioned Kopitar as well being on fire. He's currently on pace to hit 96 points this year. So blowing his previous best total ever. All right, who do you have for Cole?
Well, cold, look no further than Rasmus Ristolainen. Not playing up to his potential this year. 5 games now, no points, and a -3 rating. And overall on the year, he's not just cold now. He's just got 7 assists. Last season, he recorded 45 points in 79 games. The season before that, 41 points in 82 games. He is ice cold, and it kind of came out of nowhere. He was, I think, 4th in scoring among defensemen last year, and just 7 assists past the Thanksgiving mark, the American Thanksgiving mark. That's not a good sign for the Sabres blue line or him. Cold player number 2 is Max Pacioretty. The Montreal captain has 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 11 games. He clearly isn't why the Canadians are playing well. As I said, that's Carey Price. But when you're the captain of a team like Montreal, I think you got to produce more, or something's got to change, because you just can't have leadership from a top scoring guy. can't have a leader that's a top scoring guy if he's not producing.
Yeah, I've heard rumors.
I just don't see it.
I've heard rumors recently. People were talking about Galchenyuk. Now it's been passed a little bit to Pacioretty. Is he one of the guys you got to move to? Look for the future
right
better
now,
later on.
I definitely think so. Or just remove a little pressure, remove the C so he can focus back on scoring because, as I said, 1 goal, 3 assists in his past 11 games, that is not going to get it done.
Yep.
And then Cold player number 3, Mike Smith. Well, he's playing all right in Toronto tonight, but over the past 2 weeks, he has just 1 win in 5 starts. Oddly enough, that win was a 28-save performance in a shutout against Arizona. Obviously not the best goal scorers in Arizona, but still, that is a shutout, 28 saves. And the rest of his games, well, an .898 save percentage and a .336 goals against average. That's not good enough for a starter. And you need a little more consistency if you want to push that Calgary team over because they now have the skill on both offense and defense. They have speed. They need some goaltending to get them over that hump, and Mike Smith just needs to become more consistent and get off this little cold streak he's on. He's off to a pretty good start tonight here in Toronto.
Yeah, we mentioned Erik Karlsson a little bit earlier. He is 0-9 in the last 9 games. Nothing, so that's not looking good for him and his Senators. And in the Leafs side of things, Mitzi, 0-6 last time I checked. And it's even more odd because he's been playing on the top 3 lines. They've removed him off the 4th line, and now again he's cold again.
Well, interesting statistic: 5-on-5, Mitch Marner is actually shooting below 3% this season. He has 1 goal, 5-on-5. I believe it's 37 shots, so he's literally under 3% in his shooting percentage. So he's got to find a way to get in the lanes to get himself available to pop more goals, and just even if they're tap-ins, because right now that's simply not good enough.
All right, Connor, it's time for some Jablam Junior Hockey update. Just going to quickly go over the best teams in all the divisions in junior hockey in Canada. Perfect. And first, we'll start in the West. Top 3 teams. Let's go with the 3rd team first. Swift Current Broncos, 42 points. Second is Portland Winterhawks, 41 points. I'm doing the difference because of winning percentage. Portland, I believe, played 2 games less, so I'm going to put them in second. And, of course, the Moose Jaw Warriors, 46 points. So they're still killing it. We're going to name, at the end of this segment, the player of the month for November. And he's not even in those top 3 teams.
No.
That's how good he is.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the O. Top 3 teams. 3rd is the Hamilton Bulldogs at 38. And again, there's a few teams that are both the same, but they've played less games than some of the teams, especially in the West. And, of course, second is Sarnia Sting, 46 points. And the Sault Ste. Marie, they're at 48, so they're really killing it. And then we finish in with the Q. In third is Drummondville. Second is the Rimouski Oceanic, and they got 40, I believe, as well. And the Armada, 42, leading the Q. All right, and the Jablam Junior Hockey Player of the Month is Connor.
Well, no surprise here. We talked about him earlier tonight in our Team ISO. Carter Hart has been on fire. Over the past 3 weeks, he's got a .971 save percentage. He's got 3 shutouts. He's on pace to shatter all the records for the Everett Silvertips, there it is.
Yep.
I don't know why I forgot that one. Everett Silvertips, literally said them earlier. But anyway, he's got 3 shutouts. He's on pace to break all the goaltending records in that organization and possibly the WHL. He's absolutely on fire. And back-to-back CHL goaltender of the week over the past 2 weeks. So how can you not name him Player of the Month?
Yeah, for the whole league of all of Canada, coinciding all 3 leagues, the best in the last 2 weeks for goaltending.
Without any doubt, in my mind. I've seen a couple of his highlights. I told you today, he looks like he's made of rubber. Yep. Just the way he's able to move across the net. Plus, he's got that plus 6'2", right around 6'2" size. He's got speed, he's got quickness, he's got all the tools. So look out for him at the upcoming World Juniors. He's my pick to be Canada's starting goaltender.
Yeah, and always go to JablamHockey.com. We always put our Player of the Months on there, so he's going to be on there for November. And watch out next week when we'll start introing World Juniors talk. So check that out. All right, we do have some fantasy tips. Mine is, what I like to do is, I like to draft my teams, but then my last pick or two are guys that I think they're going to start season on fire, but then I continue that during the season. If I'm losing to a guy, like I'm playing Conner, who's very good in fantasy hockey as well, or somebody else, Peter Bojarinov, hope I beat you this week. But if I'm very close in one category, penalty minutes, plus minus, or whatever, I'll drop my tweener guy, as I like to call him, Friday or Saturday, and I look for a guy that's going to get me those penalty minutes, or whatever one or two categories that I'm very close at, power play points or whatever. And if he plays 2 games, Friday to Sunday, or if he's playing on the Sunday, quickly add a guy like that'll get me that specific point in that category to hopefully get me a few penalties or a power play point or here and there to give me that edge to win that 1 or 2 categories on the last 2 days of the week. So I recommend people to try to do that. If you're following your fantasy team, or if you don't follow that much, just check out on Friday or Saturday and add a guy that's going to have a couple games on the weekend, and it'll help you in a specific category to help you win a few extra points in your fantasy team. Connor, your tip?
My tip has got to be, we're coming up to Christmas time, which is about halfway through the fantasy season. Obviously not the NHL season, because you got fantasy playoffs. And you need to get, if you do not have a 1A goaltender, and if you have 2, well, maybe move one and pick up some scoring. Goaltenders account for, in head-to-head leagues, goaltenders account for at least 4 categories: wins, shutouts, save percentage, goals against. Some leagues you add losses, some leagues you add overall saves. If you do not have a guy after Christmas going forward that can win you those 4 categories, you're going to have trouble making your fantasy playoff or pushing for a championship. So what you need to do is go and make a trade right now, no matter how desperate you are to get one of those guys, because you need a guy that can eat up minutes and a guy that can be your backbone if you're going to go far in your fantasy playoffs. And if you have 2 1A guys, you need a little more scoring, you need some penalty minutes. Go get a guy that can get some goals, or a guy that can get some grit. Or if he's that good a goaltender, get both.
All right. And last, before we finish this segment, I did a hockey poll on Twitter. If you have that dilemma of having a few of these goalies that are currently on fire, and of course currently the big ones are Crawford, Murray, and Talbot, they're all injured. But what do you do if you have the dilemma and you have 2 of them injured?
Like I do?
Yeah.
Crawford and Talbot.
So did you drop one of them, or did you go and add somebody? What did you do?
I'm trying to do what I did. I think both those guys are 1A goaltenders, but they're hurt right now. Trying to make some chintzy trades to move them, and I'd obviously accept lesser value in return. But you got to move one of them. Darcy Kemper is a good pickup right now. King's backup goaltender. He's on fire, actually leading the league in save percentage. So he's a viable option if he's not owned in your league. I picked him up. So there you go. There's a couple tips for you.
Yeah. In there, the vote was by far high up on Talbot. I think it's... And then it was 50% for Talbot, 31% for Crawford, 19% only for Murray. But I think that more has to do with what team they're playing on and how well they're playing in the standings right now.
Exactly. The Oilers have been tough sledding so far this season.
Saturday picks, Connor. How did we do last week?
Pretty tight between the Jablam hosts, but I came out on top, 8-4, 7-5. Well, I think we're getting into the rhythm a little bit into the season. We're starting to make some more solid picks. But who's your game of the week this week?
For this week, I'm going to go first with Winnipeg Jets at Tampa Bay. Both teams we did not expect to play this well, especially the Jets. They're killing it. They got everybody clicking on that team. It's all coming together, which we kind of expected with their good prospects, good young core. So they're doing that. And, of course, Kucherov and Stamkos, they just seem like they're unstoppable, and they're just killing it.
Vasilevsky's stopping everything on the other flip side of that coin.
So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. They're at home. They're on fire. I'm going to go with the easier pick, safe pick on that one.
I think I'll follow suit with you. But my first pick for this coming Saturday is the Battle of the Hudson, the New Jersey Devils heading into New York, not Long Island. New Jersey, an odd team this year. Very good, but even better away from home. They're 10-3-2 away from home, where the Rangers, they're 11-5-2 at MSG, so that'll be a bloodbath. Chris Kreider's hot. He likes to throw the body. These teams don't like each other, so I'm predicting a gritty, low-scoring game in this one. Excellent performances from both Corey Schneider and the King if they get the start. So I'd like Rangers 3-2, maybe some extra time in that one.
Yeah, I'm think Rangers are the safer bet in that game. My go ahead.
I was going to say, who's your second?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Leafs at Pittsburgh. And I've been struggling whenever I pick the Leafs. It's usually the opposite. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. So because if I'm going to screw it up, might as well go with the other team and have my actual team win. But no, the Leafs are playing really well. And they're winning games when they're playing well, except for the Vancouver game. And then some games...
Excellent goaltending by Markstrom.
Yes, that's for sure.
Sometimes a goalie can steal a game.
Yeah.
Which is what I think Frederik Andersen is going to do on Saturday night in Pittsburgh.
That's what you're thinking.
Yep.
I'm thinking the opposite. I think Pittsburgh will pull it out because, as you said earlier, Sid the Kid's playing really, really well. And I think Anderson's maybe due for a letdown game. It happens with all goalies. He's playing tremendous right now. And if he's going to have a letdown game, it's going to be a team that has a lot of offense, like the Penguins, in... They don't call it the Igloo anymore, I guess, with the new...
They changed.
The PB paints.
Yeah.
Isn't...
Well, the reason why I got to go with the Leafs is the goaltending matchup. I don't trust Jari. He did not look so good in New York last night. Obviously taking the L there. So I got to give it to Frederik Andersen versus Jari at the end of the day. I think it's going to be more of a high-scoring one. Maybe a 4-3, 5-4 kind of thing. But I like the way... The Leafs just seem to find a way to win.
Yeah.
So I'm taking the Leafs in that one.
Yeah. And your later game?
Later game, I'm going with interesting teams. The Vegas Golden Knights kind of shocked everybody. They are 7-3 in their last 10, but so are the Dallas Stars. The difference is Dallas is 10-3 on home ice, and Vegas is 6-7-1 on the road. But I like the way Vegas is playing. They're playing great. Subban's looked great. But the thing is, every single time where I think Dallas is going to lose at home, they end up winning. So I'm going with the safe home team bet there. I'm taking Dallas just because they're on home ice. So I'm not confident in that pick, but hey, they seem to win in the Lone Star State.
All right. Before we leave, going to give a shout out to Ian. Of course, he likes to hate a lot of things, so his Twitter account is We Sell Hate. And he might not have the popular vote or opinion on some things. And his newest blog he did was saying he believes that Jack Eichel is the 5th best forward on the lowly Sabres. And I don't know if my dad was reading a lot into it, but my dad actually dropped him on his fantasy team.
Dropped. Not traded. Dropped.
Yeah, so my dad doesn't know a lot about up-and-coming players and who's very good from the young kids. But yeah, it's very odd, and I was kind of upset when I looked later on. I'm like, how did Brett get Eichel so... I'm like, oh, my God. Yeah, so check out Ian's blogs. He's got more interesting ones on JablamHockey.com. And also check out, next week we're going to start doing a mailbag. So tweet us at JablamHockey. Ask us anything about the show, things you like, things you don't like.
Do my ugly Christmas sweaters work? Do you like them? Do you not?
Or if anything that we've said that you were fond of, or you have a comment to make because of Connor's hot and cold. It's like, oh, he wasn't so hot, or our fantasy, up and down. You didn't like a player, or you added a player and said, oh, well, you guys didn't help me at all. Well, let us know. And be sure to talk about some IOC decision making. Obviously, we said in our trending now, we know the decision's made, but Putin's busy running for president. Team Canada doesn't know what to do. They want 48 hours to evaluate the situation. So we'd like to hear how you think it's going to play out with the KHL and everything else going around with the hockey side of the Olympic Games here in the coming, 2018 at Pyong Chang. See you next week.